What's up, y'all? One Piece One Life here, and guys, I think this is it. I genuinely think that we just received the greatest One Piece chapter of all time, at least as far as the story goes, because we get one of the most insane lore chapters in the series. A huge mural depicting everything that happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future. Like, this is literally Oda's way of saying, hey, pay attention because we're in the end game now. All that history that you wanted to know before, it's happening now. We're about to reveal it. And that's really what this video is going to be. I just want to break down my own thoughts on the mural after I had time to process about it. Oh, and trust me when I say that I needed time to process, because when I first read the chapter, I couldn't even get my thoughts out. But first things first, guys, y'all know what to do already. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this every week, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. You know what we always say here, let's get it going. Share it around, especially because we're approaching 500. I would really love to push to that before the end of February. That could be the Valentine's gift that y'all give to me. And make sure you subscribe to me and my boys over at CSY. We have some amazing videos coming up, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Guys, this mural, like, I don't even know where to begin, because genuinely when I was reading this, there were so many thoughts swirling around in my mind, I couldn't even make sense of it all. And then keep in mind, I was reading it on Thursday, and on Friday I had a retreat to go to, so I couldn't even spend that much time debriefing about it. But that's why I just spent 45 minutes of my life just now going through the entire thing and connecting everything that I had already thought about. So buckle in, because we're going to unravel the full history right now. And I think the best way to do this is by me reading out the passages of each world, and then we talk about what happens in each world, alongside what we see in the murals of each world. Also, just so you know, the translations that I'm going to be using is going to be from the Viz. Even though I usually read on TCB, shout out TCB loyalists, I think that for chapters like this, where it's very particular wording, translating from the Viz is actually very important for accuracy. At least just to make sure that, you know, nothing is lost in translation. And obviously, I'll be going back and forth between the two to cross-reference anyway. Starting us off, we have the first world. Within the earth, there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. The enslaved prayed, and the sun god appeared. The earth god raged, and with its serpent of hellfire, shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet again. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is noting the serpent of hellfire, because we literally see that serpent coming out from the factories. The fact that it's coming out of the factories is making me think that maybe this is some sort of mechanical creation that the old world had, kind of similar to the Iron Giants and stuff like that, like some sort of automaton maybe. And that would be the more literal interpretation, but there is another one. What else is big and red and has been described as a serpent by certain groups? The Red Line. So it begs the question, is the Red Line really the ancient fire serpent of legend? Well, this would make sense as to why the factions wouldn't see each other again, because if the Red Line is literally separating them, you know, there's no way for them to meet. But there's something else that goes to that I'm going to be talking about a bit later. So towards the right side, we see a factory powered by slaves who seem to be carting what may appear to be pieces of the forbidden sun. This seems to be the power source. So my thought is that this is whatever the mother flame that Vegapunk made, this is what that was based on. The original power source that existed during the Void Century that Vegapunk said has been lost. Something that may potentially connect to the original Nika. The factory itself, I believe, is representing just the advanced technology that we know the Void Century and the olden times had, according to Vegapunk. So in this section, there's a part that says, the sun god appeared after those who were enslaved prayed, which makes it seem like this may be the tale of Nika fighting against the original Earth god. Now, there is something important to note when we're talking about these gods and how they tie into each other. When we get the name of the sun god in Skypiea, there are 3 other gods that are mentioned alongside it, these being the earth god, the forest god, and the rain god. Now, an important thing to remember in the context of what we're reading is that this is like essentially their Bible, which means that gods in this context may not be taken as the literal gods, but it's just, you know, the way that the giants are interpreting it. Though it's still fun to think about if there really was gods, and that's one of the questions that we continue battling with. Is there gods or not, and how do they play into the world? But whether or not the gods actually exist, one thing we can definitely extrapolate is that there's a strong chance that these gods are going to come through in the form of devil fruits. Hell, who knows, maybe Loki has one of these fruits. Maybe Dragon has the rain god fruit, and that's why with his power he's able to control storms and all, and that would be much more interesting than it just being a Wind Logia. And with Loki and Dragon each having a fruit, maybe that allows Blackbeard to then have one of the last ones. and we have the 4 quartet of gods right there. But just keep in mind that the earth god and everything like that, it may not be that literal, because it may not be that there were literal gods coming down, but it could just be their interpretations of what happened in the earth. Now we have the second world, and this is during the void century, so we're able to start piecing things together that we know. Within the void there was breath. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. Those of the half moon dreamed, those of the moon dreamed. Man killed the sun and became god, and the sea god stormed, and they will never meet again. So the first thing that this made me realize is that the moon and everything that we see in NL's cover story is definitely going to come back into the story in some stage, because we literally see the arc maxim, or at least something that looks like it, and being powered by lightning. It also mentions that we have the people of the half moon and full moons dreaming. Now if you think about the people of the half moons, what does a half moon look like? I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, a D. So surely the people of the half moon has to mean the will of D, right? Those of similar thoughts and dreams coming together in their shared vision of the world. Now who the people of the full moons are is a lot more interesting to speculate on, because a lot of factions regard the moon in different ways. Obviously you have the Kozuki clan with their whole theming around the moon, and the Minxi using the moon to go into their Sulan forms. But no, I genuinely think that it's something even deeper than that. I literally think it's referring to the fact that there were the moon people on the moon and they came down to the planet. Because as we see in Enel's cover story, it was the winged races who inhabited the moon and then left when they came down to the planet. So it seems like the Lunarians have an even bigger role to play than we originally thought. But again, with the fact that Vegapunk teased that in his message, it all makes sense now. We also see what appears to be the Noah being used, because just like in Noah's Ark, we see animals marching 2 by 2. And on top of that, there's a figure with a crown that vaguely resembles Emu. Around that, there's a vaguely elephant shape, so maybe that has to do with Zunisha. It would make sense because he's a companion of Joy Boy. But I want to draw our attentions back to this line. The forest god taming demons seems to me like that has everything to do with the devil fruits, especially in relation to the forest god who knows, may or may not have been named Eve. Now, of course, this would be a great way to tie in the devil fruit tree Eve into the narrative, especially because that's a popular theory that's been going around. And it would make sense, Eve being personified almost as a god, and because it's a tree and its fruits coming from the tree is being personified as the forest god. Then we have the bar man killed the sun and became god. This seems to me like it's clearly referring to the fact that Emu and the other members of the 20 allied powers who were once mortal all came together and were able to defeat Joy Boy, who had the sun god fruit. And in so doing, the world nobles became the gods of the world. Then around this time, it said that the sea god stormed. Now I'm not really sure what this means, because is it changing what the original was with the rain god to a sea god? Now this is interesting because it seems to be setting up the fact that it's in fact the sea god who flooded the world and made it to the current configuration. Now the thing about this is, we were already told by Vegapunk during his speech, I did a whole video analysis breakdown of that last week if you're interested, and it was completely in German, not in German, a German accent, that it was due to the ancient weapons, and more specifically Uranus, that the world was sinking. So what connections do these weapons have to the sea? And how does all of this connect to the previous mentions of the personified sea devil? Well, when I actually think about it more, what really makes sense is if you actually think that this thing here that we all thought was the maxim isn't literally the maxim itself, but rather it's an allusion to Uranus itself. It all fits because to our knowledge, Uranus is what is causing the floods. Every time Emu uses it, the world continues to sink. So maybe what Enno was trying to do in his cover story may have simply been a microcosm of what happened to the world as a whole. And finally, we have the third world. This brings us to the present day and the finale of the story. Within the chaos, there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning. This time, they will surely meet. Now first things first, draw your attention to this line. Inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voices of the half moon. With, of course, as I already mentioned, the voices of the half moon, meaning the voices of the will of D people, which all makes sense as to why Cobra told Sabo that Luffy and Vivi meeting again was critically important, and that those with the will of D are going to be crucial to bringing down the regime. The sun god, Luffy, will be the one to usher in the dawn of the world as we know it. And then there's the promised day. Is that when it'll finally be time for Luffy to actually effectuate this change? The promise that Joy Boy failed to keep to the mermaid princess? That makes sense to me, because then it also connects to why Roger and his crew were too early, because it wasn't the promised time yet. And you know, It's crazy to think. Is this the reason that Rayleigh had Luffy wait and train for 2 years? Because it's a crazy coincidence that all of these things are happening at this nexus point in time right now post time skip. One might even call it fate. Blackbeard would probably call it fate, but I don't like Blackbeard, so I'm getting him out of my video. The giant tree in the middle may be the devil fruit tree Eve, or it could represent the fact that it's on Elbaf, the tallest nation in the world, where all the wars of the past happened, which we were already told to be true. And then the part on the left hand side of the mural, that's the mural for the third world that depicts everyone who will be involved in the final war. You have the giant demon wielding the sun, obviously being Imu's transformed state with the mother flame powering his side, and the world government's soldiers and faction. Obviously you have Nika, who's going to be Luffy. You have what looks to be Elbafian giants, which is interesting because you then also have a distinct other type of giant that kind of looks like Loki. So is this supposed to represent like the ancient giants? Or perhaps highlighting the fact that Loki himself is going to be critical for the final war. You have figures wielding katanas and ninja stars representing the Wano samurai and ninja, which I know as important because I have a theory from a little over a year ago where I said that I believe that Odin and the Kozuki clan are actually hidden D clan members. The same way that Clover's family was hiding the D, the same way that Vivi's family was hiding the D. You can check out that video because I actually have ties between Momo and Vivi that I think are incredibly important, and explain why I believe Momo is actually going to be very important for the final war. You have fish representing the fishmen, with the mermaid princess being right above them. And I don't need to explain why Shirahoshi as an ancient weapon is important. Imu already had a picture of her. You have the Tantatas there, seemingly the long arms and the long legs, the minks and their Sulong forms, which now that I think about it, isn't it interesting how clearly parallel they are to Gear 5? White transformations with red eyes that are spurred on by the moon. You have what seems to be the Lunarians, so maybe King is gonna flip sides or the Seraphim are gonna flip sides. This ship here seems like it has the symbol of Alabasta on it, though of course sun symbology is everywhere in One Piece. Then you got the Iron G. Shout out to my personal Egghead MVP because this guy was amazing. You got whales and people riding them, so it even ties Laboon and his species into this, and then even some raindrops, which indicates that to some extent we are gonna get something from the rain god. But now the most interesting part of all of this to me is this notion of meeting again that is said at the end of each of the passages. At the ends of the first 2 worlds, it says that they will never meet again, but at the end of the 3rd world, it says surely this time they will. I was thinking of this as a separation of the people, and that through Luffy everyone will come together and be one, as his dream is implied to be a world where everyone comes together for a great big party and no one is in strife because everyone has the resources that they need. But then it makes me think of another video that I put out last summer, and it was actually a theory on Luffy's dream. And it's especially important because it ties into the continental fragments that we learned of during Vegapunk's speech. Go check it out for more details, but in it I essentially said that I believe that the One Piece may actually have been just its own supercontinent, a supercontinent that was fractured multiple times and split up, and at some stage, to some degree, we're gonna have to bring all the pieces of the world that have been scattered back together again to recreate the continent that once existed, as evidenced by the Pangaea name, with Pangaea Castle being right in the middle of the world. This means the Red Line will have to fall, which ties into the whole prophecy with Madame Charlie, and then it ties into Oars being known as the continent puller, and just the continent pullers in general, and why they actually pulled the continent apart. So that now in this era, something will happen that brings all the fragments back together to form one whole, one piece. I don't know what you guys think, but I think I cracked the code. I say I, like other people hadn't also thought of this. But genuinely, this is like one of the funnest times to be a One Piece fan because you hear everybody else's perspectives as well, and makes you think of other things that you hadn't even been thinking about. So genuinely, I encourage everyone to watch as many other YouTubers' videos about this as possible, because all of our collective consciousness is coming together. But I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think this uncovers everything there is to know about the world now? Did we crack the code? Or is there an angle that is still being not seen from this picture? Let me know everything that you're thinking about in the comments. Now that's the end of the video, y'all, but before we go, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this every week, and share it around with all your friends who love the series, or anime and manga in general. Remember, I'm trying to build a community, but I need your help to do it. That's gonna be all from me. I'll catch you on the next one. And always remember, One Piece, One Life. God, I love this story.